Right, Alva Allen, 15th March 2022, at the National Workers Union. A brief commentary on the award by the Industrial Court of 000 for T&TEC workers for the period 2015 to 2017. While a lot of commentators have expressed the view that this has serious implications going forward for all the outstanding negotiations, which is true, I support that. Right? Just telling everybody what to expect if they come for judgment in their negotiations. Something occurred to me that wasn't too right. It wasn't sitting right at all, because the case was being argued that if T&TEC gives a salary increase, they will have to retrench workers because they have no money. That was the entirety of the case. It was argued on that premise that they have no money. But the truth of the matter is that T&TEC is going to be getting a substantial increase in their revenues very soon. They had already applied to the Regulated Industries Commission since last year for a rates increase. And according to the interview from the general manager, they expect a decision within 11 months. We already passed that, and therefore the decision on the rates increase is going to come very soon. It means that T&TEC's revenue is going to substantially increase, and therefore they didn't take that into consideration, that they would then have the ability to pay the increase if the workers were to be given any increase at all, right, which the union had proposed. So it's not to say that they didn't have the ability to pay, right? They were going to get, and they're still going to be getting, increase in revenue from the award that will be delivered by the Regulatory Industries Commission very soon. But it appears to me that the intention was not to give the workers any, even though T&TEC could now have this increase in revenue, because it was a message that was being concocted to send out there that workers have nothing to get in this round, so all these outstanding negotiations. That is what the message that to me was being deliberately contrived, but on a very false premise that T&TEC didn't have money. That was never the total truth, because the revenues of T&TEC are about to be increased substantially from what the general manager himself said in the interview last year in the press, right, when they applied for the rates increase. The second thing I want to say is that the problem in T&TEC is not a new problem with money. It never was. It's an old problem of how T&TEC has been structured from ever since. Some of you might remember the days of the 50s and 60s when the program of industrialization was now being developed and implemented in Trinidad and other parts of the Caribbean. One of the incentives that was being offered was cheap infrastructure for investors to come here and invest the money and make a mint, a pound and a crown, right, from cheap infrastructure. And how was that done? In the case of T&TEC, they use what is called an inverted rate. What does that mean? Simple. The more electricity you use, the cheaper the rate. The less electricity you use, the more expensive the rate. So domestic customers like myself, we will end up paying about 37 cents a unit for 1 unit of electricity, you know. But the big industrial customers, you know how much they pay? In some cases less than 10 cents a unit, in some cases 16 cents. Then paying less than half the amount we pay. but they're using more and they're paying less. That is why T&TEC could never run at a profit, because it was always the position that these utilities be set up to subsidize big business. And by starving the workers of an increase, that is exactly what we are furthering. But this rate structure that they have with the inverted rate, and T&TEC is not the only utility with an inverted rate structure. It have others. But we could talk about that at our next time. So the problem with the finances of T&TEC, one of the major problems, right, is to address that rate structure and the inverted rate structure, and let big business pay the true cost of production. Because under law, T&TEC is required to have from the rates sufficient money to cover the operating expenses, pay the debts, and meet expansion programs. But the rates that big business pay could never ever afford that, because it is significantly below the cost of production of one unit, right? And I am saying that that is what has contributed to where T&TEC has always been. And that has to end, because we, in fact, taxpayers, in fact, subsidizing big business. And it is not only in the case of T&TEC. Look at what the government did. The Minister of Finance went on TV and said that how they're offering incentives to the business community now, some small and medium enterprises last year, and the incentives was that they wouldn't have to pay NIS. So right through is subsidies to big business, right through. They know how many employers not paying the NIS, and they wouldn't take action against them and carry them before the magistrate in accordance with the law and have them answer for the criminal conduct, but they're not doing that. And at the end of the day, really working people is the ones who have to suffer. We're the ones who have to pay more for electricity. Why? Because they're selling electricity below production cost, substantially below production cost, subsidizing big business down the line, all over the years. Government come, governments go, same story on page 1, all of them. And at the end of the day, what do the workers get? 0, 0, 0. As if the problem couldn't be solved. The same argument that T&TEC came with in the last negotiation in the court is the same argument they came with 30-something years ago. And the court demolished that very same argument that if they pay the workers a salary increase, they got to retrench. That is nothing new. They tell the court that 30-something years ago. And the court pushed that aside because they had the wherewithal to increase the revenue, to pay the workers an increase. And they don't have to put that burden on domestic customers like us. All they have to do is to charge the industrial customers, big business, the correct rates that they're supposed to pay.